all our distribution partners and investors. A big thank you to everyone for investing your faith in Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. As well as coming back to today's topic, as we all witnessed, last 2.5 years were very challenging in the credit space, especially post IL&FS crisis and credit events back to back, which we have seen the major companies crisis and which made credit funds more volatile. Today's call is all about exactly what transpired and way forward on credit market and prospects of ABSL Credit Risk Fund, and especially how we managed in this volatile period and how we managed our client expectations despite of back-to-back credit events. All these funds are franchise of past, or can we expect a better experience over our traditional fixed deposit, especially when the interest rate regime is going very low? Let us hear from our horse's mouth. Today with us, Ms. Sunaina, who is our co-head fixed income at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC Limited. She has a rich experience of 17 years in fixed income fund management with an expertise in structurizing bond solution and credit transactions. As a co-head, Sunaina leads the overall credit portfolio of the AMC. Sunaina is a CFA chartered holder from CFA Institute, Virginia, USA. She is also an MBA from Faculty of Management Studies, FMS, University of Delhi. Welcome, Sunaina, for the weekly Market Navigator series. And also with us today, our esteemed partner, Mr. Anurag Bagrodia from Nesher Family Wealth Advisory from Bangalore. And he comes with 20 years of experience in the field of wealth management and managing over 400 crores of assets under management across 35 families. As a seasoned private banker, he has built up a specialization in selecting innovative solutions in the areas of capital market products. With a process-oriented advisory approach, he has been advising high net worth individuals on their investment across the asset classes. He is an alumnus of St. Joseph College, Bangalore. He is a business management graduate and holds a master's degree in business administration with a specialization in marketing and finance. He has been nominated as Best Financial Advisor, South Megacities for financial year 2014-15, 15-16, 17-18, and 18-19. It's a pleasure to have both of you on this platform, Sunaina and Anurag. And over to you, Anurag. Look forward fruitful conversation today.
Thanks, Tirumala, and thanks a lot. Hi, Sunaina.
Hi.
I think today is a good and a bad day also because we are won few of the matches in wrestling. Hopefully, this is more of a wrestling going for ahead for you for the debt market, right? You're a pretty easy year. Now it will be a wrestling time, and I hope you come up well from that.
So I think we're aiming for gold, I think, with one of our wrestlers. So hopefully we can do the same in the credit funds as well.
Yeah, hope that. So maybe I'll start immediately and, ask first thing. We have seen after a couple of, tough years in the beginning when the IL&FS crisis happened and we saw in the credit fund of yours and maybe credit and medium term fund both together. Now we have seen a lot of stabilization in the portfolio from last year and a half. So just wanted to understand maybe benefit for everybody, how and what you did to make it, come back in last year and a half at least.
So Anurag, over the last 2 years, as you rightly pointed out, credit markets have been fairly volatile. And I think as Tirumala also pointed out, there have been a lot of episodes and defaults also in the market that were seen across industry. In the last 2.5 years, starting, of course, with the IL&FS incident. From our perspective, in the last 1.5 to 2 years, while we initially upfront had of our exposures to IL&FS SPVs get into some amount of trouble, and also some of our other exposures, also to the SL group, we have over the last couple of years been able to recover some of those assets and some of that money. So, for example, there have been recoveries in some of the IL&FS assets like IL&FS Education, where the asset was classified as amber, and hence we did not receive monies once the new management took over. But the moment the asset got sold, there was more than adequate amount of money lying in our escrow account, and we got paid out immediately and in full. So that was an immediate recovery that came to our scheme. Similarly, with SL, where we had, shares as security, and along with the other loan against shares lenders, we also sold our shares in an organized manner in the market, and we were able to recover monies there. So, we have seen recoveries in some of our assets. Additionally, over the last 1.5 years, we have been able to capitalize on duration gains. We saw a fairly steep fall in interest rates last year, and we were able to pick that up fairly early and capitalize on those, duration gains. Of course, not only in credit funds, but across all our portfolios, but that also shows up in the credit funds. And also credit spreads. So very early last year, in May 2020, we called I don't know whether you call it the top or the bottom of the credit market, saying that, the worst is now behind us, things will get better. And that's when we started re-entering the credit market and buying papers at very good spreads at that point of time. The spreads had blown out. There was a lockdown, economic lockdown. We had seen, credit markets in fair amount of turmoil. Very large fund house had shut redemptions for credit funds. So there was a fair amount of turmoil in the credit markets, particularly, and spreads had blown out. And we capitalized on some of those opportunities that were made available to us. So I think it's a combination of all these factors, as well as being very careful and vigilant, and ensuring that after, that we were very active and agile in cutting a lot of the risk very early. So so even prior to the IL&FS crisis, we had already started cutting down on our risk. We exited a lot of, the higher risky papers, where we thought that it was not from a perspective that there could be a default, but from a perspective that spreads would increase, and that would be MTM losses to our investors. So we exited a lot of papers there. We stayed away from certain kinds of papers which had found the flavor of the market, perpetuals being bank perpetual bonds being case in point. And as a result, we managed to protect our investors, by active management, nimbly exiting from a lot of papers, staying away from certain others from MTM losses, potential MTM losses.
Okay. So interesting thing I was wanted to know, because when the Franklin episode happened, a lot of redemption pressure came across the credit fund of yours also, right? And we all know that credit funds are not liquidable, and if you get 30% or 20% of the redemption coming in, but you guys were able to manage it. So how it was managed then, and maybe today if situation comes like that, where are you standing?
Sure. So at that point of time, we had already anticipated issues in the credit market. So we had begun creating liquidity in our portfolio. In a span of 2 or 3 weeks, immediately post the Templeton event, our credit fund, along with the rest of industry, actually saw 35 to 40% drawdown in AUM, within that 3-week span. We managed liquidity in multiple ways. One is, as I said, we had already started creating liquidity, anticipating that there could be redemptions, given the fact that we had stepped into a very severe lockdown and pandemic. There was a lot of uncertainty. Nobody quite understood the virus. Nobody knew how it was going to pan out. So we had already started creating liquidity in the portfolio, but also we created liquidity by exiting some positions that we had. Of course, we had liquid papers in our portfolio, which helped in liquidity, but also illiquid papers, so-called illiquid papers. We sold in the markets in a fairly organized manner, and were able to generate liquidity via the portfolio itself. And we didn't resort to, we basically, the fund managed independently by creating liquidity on its own. I think that was a good learning for us, as that we can independently, individual funds manage their liquidity. And even in a fund like credit fund, where, it's generally thought to have a fair amount of illiquidity. There were options that we had, put options, etc., that we immediately exercised, for certain papers. Other papers were sold in the market.
So what's the situation today if it happens,
Situation today still, learning from that, we maintain a minimum liquidity ratio of 10%. So that is ultra liquid papers. Over and above that, also we have liquid papers that are there in our portfolio, and we ladder our portfolio. So it's not that the core portfolio, which generates the yield, is a bullet or a far off redemption. It is a fairly laddered portfolio that will be self-liquidating in nature.
Okay. Coming to also, there was a talk, when the pandemic was hitting very higher, then more dirty linen will come out as a default from the, credit side. But surprisingly, we didn't see much, right? Maybe one-off case, it was not a big name also, which has, come out apart from one or two case. So do you see, that we become more complacent, and then there could be a thing which will come out now?
No, I don't think it's a question of complacency. Credit markets went through a fair amount of churn before the pandemic. But at the time of the pandemic, two things happened. RBI unleashed a massive liquidity infusion as well as rate cut. And on the other hand, FinMin came out with large number of programs under the Atmanirbhar package. More important for the bond markets would be, let's say, the guarantee scheme that they gave, and the moratorium that they initially gave last year. But it was the large borrowers, and that's basically our universe, that benefited from the huge amount of liquidity that was and still continues to slosh around in markets, as well as the lower rates. So corporates last year took great advantage. They have elongated their maturities. They have reduced their cost of debt, replaced expensive debt with cheaper debt, and they have taken on much more liquidity on their books. Additionally, with equity markets being very favorable in the last 6, 8, 9 months, lots of large corporates have also taken the opportunity to raise equity and deleverage their balance sheets. So it's interesting that today, actually, corporate health, and when I say corporate, I'm talking about the large corporates here, which would be the investment grade universe, our universe, which are actually very well positioned today. Much better position than when they were, before the pandemic. Because we entered this pandemic actually with a fairly weak corporate health. It had come on the back of the IL&FS crisis. Economic growth had been wavering before that. It was very tepid upturn that we were seeing in the economy. So as a result, today when we look at it, corporate health is much improved, and you can see that in the results. Over and above that, you've seen a huge reflation in commodities. So cyclical companies have really turned around. And some of the companies, particularly metal companies, are coming out with the best quarterly results in the last 10 years. Some of them the best quarterly results ever. So, you are seeing the more cyclical companies benefiting with the rebound in economy that we've seen post the lockdown, post the reopening. It is likely that there will be tremendous tailwind in the economy. So we're actually interestingly poised right now where corporate health is much better. And we may actually be entering a phase of rating upgrades shortly. Because balance sheets are well placed, profitability is reasonably good, and companies are fairly liquid. So I think it's fairly well positioned. Also, because of the way things are, there's a fair amount of supply that you're seeing in the market. So bankers actually in their wholesale book, the wholesale book has been static since FY 2016. They haven't lent since FY 2016. And that's because they've had to do a fair amount of cleanup in those books of AQR and all the various provisionings that they've had to do. But now again, they're well placed and well positioned to restart lending. And you can see that companies will also mostly start off hopefully in a capex cycle, and then we get a fair amount of supply again coming to the markets for choice and opportunity for investment. So it's interesting, but right now actually it is counterintuitive. But right now, corporate health is actually much better placed than where we were pre-pandemic.
Yeah, so there were talks, where all the housing finance, a lot of the NBFC, small NBFC, will see a lot of people going down the drain, and that's where the risk were. So as you mentioned right now, that didn't happen, and much, right? We didn't see a major default on that side. And now most of the things are rating upgrade you're expecting in some of the areas, not necessarily housing sector, wherever it may be.
That's right. So see, it's a little bit of a K-shaped recovery that we've seen. You've seen a shift in in behavior. The big have become bigger. The market share has moved from unorganized to organized, and the organized players have got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. However, this entire pandemic has been very bad, particularly the second wave has been very bad for the, what should I say, the household balance sheets, the very small MSMEs, SMEs, and the very small marginal borrowers that are there. And, you are seeing that in the results that are coming out, where there is a divergence in financials numbers. If they are more skewed towards wholesale, there's not much difference between March and June numbers. But if they're skewed towards retail, particularly towards these segments, MSME, MFI, the smaller borrowers, or, to a lesser extent, and to some extent, the auto financiers, those are the ones that are actually seeing a sharp jump in the NPAs. So it's a K-shaped recovery.
Okay. So now, will you be looking at, if you think that some of the places rating will go up, so, and the spread we have seen between AA and below the AA is higher today, still at the, much spread is much higher than in the history it has been. So are you looking at bringing that back in your portfolio in a good companies or in the middle sector companies, and how your philosophy will be going?
Absolutely. So, we will look for those opportunities where we think there are upgrade stories around the corner. We will look for those where, we are able to buy spread. See, last year, as I mentioned initially, there were large duration gains, large capital, appreciation happened because of the sharp drop in interest rates. Going forward, as we move towards normalization, things are going to be very volatile in fixed income. But accrual will buffer it to a greater extent. And as you rightly mentioned, spreads AA and below are still at higher levels, and that will protect against, rising interest rates. The liquidity that is there in the system has chased down the spreads of AAAs, to a smaller extent AA pluses. And, those have come down well below historical median levels. But the AA minus and below that, those spreads still remain, higher than median. And that's what, we hope to invest in and capitalize on. And that's why also we have reopened our credit risk fund for additional subscriptions. We had closed it last year. I guess it was also the confidence that we had in our ability to generate liquidity despite, the huge drawdown we saw in AUM, that we allowed, redemption of course to continue, but we stopped fresh subscriptions because, we thought that was required at that point of time. Now, looking at the way the economy is, looking at the, the potential upside that is available, we have looked to reopen it.
So are you looking at, when you're saying the re-rating may happen in some of the areas, do you have some of the sectors or broad area where you can state it could be what you're looking at? Or you?
So there are cyclical companies, there are commodity-based companies where you could see some amount of upgrade, cyclical companies basically. There are also could be potential, in individual sectors because of, their ability to have raised money, de-lever, etc. It'll be a fair amount of bottoms-up approach that we will follow to try and identify these players. We have identified a couple of them already, and you see them in our portfolio. But going ahead, that is something that we'll continue to closely track and add to the portfolio.
Also, I just wanted to know, with the yield expected to move up now, right? Would you see spread further rising, or in fact, stay a demand will be higher now? So then, so beyond that, if the demand is more, the spread will not rise further. Otherwise, when the yields go up, even the AA below there's a tendency for the spread to go up at times because you are higher risk you put to those companies. But because of the demand, the spread will still remain, or it will contract?
No, so we believe that, the reason why those spreads have not come down is also look at the absolute levels. The absolute levels are actually very low for a AA minus company to be raising at that absolute level, keep the spread aside. But as the yields and the base curve starts moving up, that spread will come down. And it's only after it comes back to some amount of normalcy will we start seeing that normal spread either shrinking or, maintaining. But, it has gone above the median levels right now. And that's something that we hope to take advantage of. It will also buffer against, the normalization of interest rates as and when rates start creeping up. So that, to a great extent will provide some kind of a buffer, not only in terms of accrual, in terms of yield, but also in terms of, the fact that there is that excess spread that is there over and above the normal median. And that will, cushion for a while. Also, to the greater extent, then, we will look to invest in those kind of papers. The other thing is generally while our, we have the ability to go right up to about 3.5 years of Macaulay duration, we generally run in credit risk fund about 1.5 to 2 years. And, generally investors in this fund, come in with more than a 3-year horizon. So, that reinvestment at a higher rate will also happen, over the next couple of years. Because as I said, we create these laddered portfolios. So, at successively higher levels, we will also be reinvesting at higher levels. So that will happen. In terms of supply into the market of paper, there is a fair amount of supply that is available. And I think once the CapEx and as the CapEx cycle restarts, you will see a supply of good paper, good quality paper coming to the
market. Okay. So net, what I understand, maybe you can correct me, is duration is definitely going to be a tough time going ahead. But with looking at a little lower rated paper, good quality company with the maybe AA spreads, that's where the whole return can come going ahead, because otherwise we are not going to see much of return. So credit fund will see the flavor again if you're able to get the good quality paper at the, but market perception may be not so good. And that's where the things will go ahead.
That's right. Because of the normalization, it's likely that you will see volatility in interest rates. Now, whether it will be tough going, it actually depends on the actual pace of normalization versus what market is, actually expecting and has priced in. Right now, the yield curve is very steep. And we don't believe ourselves that, the pace of normalization will be as steep as what the yield curve is suggesting. We believe that there will be normalization, but it will happen at a slightly later pace, slower pace, versus what the market has already factored in. So generally, when you are in a rising rate regime, market is caught off guard, and hence you see a lot of reversals of gains, etc. This time, actually, market is anticipating well in advance, in our view, more than what will actually play out. So yes, we are in for volatile times going ahead. But, if even in duration, if you are able to withstand the volatility and you have a longer time horizon, it will, the gains will accrue to you, because right now the yield curve is extremely steep.
Lastly, I'll ask, maybe I'm sure many of the audience will like to know on your segregated portfolio part, any views, any updates, just so that we all know about it?
Sure. So this, the segregated portfolio, as you all know, has as its underlying security a mixture of annuity and toll roads. This sector was one of those very badly impacted by COVID, from both aspects. The toll roads, of course, and, in our package, there are 2 roads that have some value. One is the toll road, a state toll road. The other one is a state annuity. The state toll road was very badly impacted because last year in April and May, there was complete lockdown. All tolls were removed. So there was no revenue earned by that road for a period of time. The road also in the second wave happens to fall in a state which was very badly impacted, where very severe, local restrictions and lockdowns were imposed. So again, the traffic fell quite a bit. It has recovered now, but we believe that investors will look at, some amount of stability before they come in. As far as the state annuity is concerned, like all states have faced a fair amount of financial constraints because of the unexpected spending in COVID, and initially due to the lower receipts in under GST. So the financial situation of all states was fairly constrained, and same with the state. We have been receiving annuities, but there is still, some amount of clearance and some amount of work that needs to be completed. We are working on a two-pronged approach. One is through our investment banker, selling the individual roads to pay down the bond. And the second is also looking to sell the NCDs. So this is a two-pronged approach we are working on. We have kept in mind that there is time value of money. And so, of course, we will keep evaluating the bids as they come, keeping in mind that, there is time value of money and it's better to resolve earlier than later.
Thank you. I think, maybe we can open questions from the audience if they have any. Tirumala?
Thanks, Anurag. Please give specific recovery timeline for medium-term plan. I think this one is asking.
Sure. So we just spoke about the segregated asset. I'll also, speak about the other two assets, which are the RLNFS SPVs. The first one is Jharkhand Roads Projects Implementation, which is a state annuity road in Jharkhand. As you know, this company was initially categorized as amber, but after a very long court battle, we converted it into green last year. Thereafter, annuities, the payments to the NCD holders started being received on a regular basis. As I was mentioning earlier, all states have been very badly impacted due to COVID. And Jharkhand state was no exception. As a result of which, we have extended the moratorium to the company because annuities from the state have been delayed due to the constrained financial position. So we have given a moratorium to the company in terms of under the RBI framework for COVID-related stress, the KV Kamath guidelines, we've given a moratorium to the company in terms of payment. We hope that annuities will start being received by the company now that the second wave has also abated. And as and when annuities come in, there will be a sweep payment for the previous payments on the NCD, which have been currently put in moratorium. So that's the update on Jharkhand Roads. The other asset is RLNFS Tamil Nadu Power. Over there are 15 to 16 lenders and investors like ourselves. All the debt holders as well as the company and MCA have come to a restructuring package and a plan, which has now got approval from the lenders as well as from RBI, which was required. The last approval which was required is of NCLAT, the court in Delhi. There is, it was actually put up much earlier in January for approval, but because of COVID, it was, they didn't hear this matter. They were hearing only very urgent matters. We hope that case comes up. It's supposed to come out sometime this week. That case is supposed to come up sometime this week. And once approval comes, then the documentation for the restructuring will get finalized and then payments will start.
So Sunil, just asking on the Jharkhand, when you talked about delay in the moratorium which you have given, is there an impact on the re-rating on the fund? Because Jharkhand you have re-rated up, again have you re-rated down or something?
No, because after the moratorium was given, CRISIL validated the rating at C again. Okay. The other two rating agencies have valued it at D, and they continue to value it at D. And it is accordingly valued in the portfolio.
The next question is from Aman Chahal. What is the damage by Vodafone? Though we don't have any exposure in Vodafone, especially in credit risk fund.
So Vodafone, we actually, we actually have a very small exposure now in Vodafone left. It is held in our books at a valuation of 0. That is because for a while we have believed that there is a binary outcome that could happen. So that is, that is the outcome of Vodafone.
Whether credit risk fund is suitable for retail investor.
So, as I said, in a situation where you have, rates at fairly low levels, for a retail investor, one who ideally has a time horizon of 3 years plus, and is well aware of the risks that are there in a credit risk fund. There should be some place that you always have in your fixed income allocation for accrual products. And the credit risk fund is, an accrual product because it gives you that higher spread. It over a period of time, despite drawdowns, and credit risk fund is a great example of that, right? We did see drawdowns in terms of credit accidents, in 2018. If you held on for a period of time, that actually has recovered. So if you look at the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, even from inception returns, it's credit risk fund is well above median in its category. In fact, in 1 year, it's top of pops. So for a retail investor, as long as they understand the risk and they're willing to live with the volatility that is inherent in credit markets, this is a product that they should look at for as a core holding in their part of their fixed income or their debt allocation.
Again, same distributor is asking about what are the scheme specific risk and what are the binding constraints which you are following right now to mitigate the risk?
Sure. So, there are a couple of changes that we've made in terms of, the way we underwrite. So that's a chart up there with our binding constraints. This we have implemented across each and every one of our schemes that we have at Birla. These binding constraints are in terms of individual issuer, group wise, rating category wise, minimum rating that you can have. And this is for each and every one of our portfolios that we've introduced this binding constraints. I've been following it for the last 2 years, particularly for incremental exposures that we take. For credit risk fund, as far as the mandate is concerned, 65% of investment has to be in AA and below rated instruments. That is the mandate that this scheme has as per the SEBI categorization. But over and above that, we have put in our own binding constraints. Cumulative exposure below AA minus will not exceed 25%. We will not take exposure to A minus, and you will not see unrated exposure. In the past, you would have seen us taking exposure in even the BBB category. Actually, those investments did very well for us. We actually saw lots of upgrades in those investments. But looking at the environment right now, we believe that we will not take exposure in that BBB category. We will have a floor at A minus, and we will cumulatively restrict ourselves in the A category to a maximum of 25%. Very important learning also that came out was individual security exposure. Incrementally speaking, we will ensure that for non-AAA rated papers in this portfolio, we will restrict our exposure to 3%. We're doing this at the stage when the fund is relatively small. But as the fund size grows, and since we've opened it up, inflows will come and have been coming, we will bring down this 3% further, because our experience has been that, at the top of the cycle, when the fund size is at its most bloated, what is 3% at that point of time in the down cycle, when AUMs erode, can actually look closer to 9 and 10%. So, while we're now starting at a very small fund house size, restricting our individual security exposure to just 3%, as the fund size grows bigger and bigger, we will bring this down lower and lower. And our Macaulay duration will lie between 1 and 3.5 years. Additionally, we will always maintain 10% liquidity ratio of holding very, very highly liquid papers in the portfolio, over and above, the regular liquidity that our other papers will provide.
That's good, Sunaina. I think some more questions are coming quickly. I will take it up. Indian government is promoting PLI scheme aggressively and manufacturing theme as well. Are you comfortable lending to these companies?
So, the schemes have been announced, over the last 1.5 year, the regulations have been, and the fine print, so to say, has been coming out. A lot of bidding is happening. We do expect that some of these entities who have bid and, start producing under the PLI will come and tap the bond market. When I was talking about the supply that we expect coming into the market, supply in terms of papers coming into the market, this is definitely one area that we see where large, good companies setting up, capex here in India, whether either on their own or through the PLI scheme, will come and tap the bond markets. And that is something we'll definitely look at on a case-by-case basis, of course.
If credit space grows from here onwards, what kind of a size you are expecting?
So, we have, managed a very large amount of money in the credit space across our funds that were part of the credit platform. We do expect the credit markets to recover and interest to come back in the credit space, particularly since yield maximization is something that, fixed income investors would be looking at. So I think in this upcycle, we should beat the previous AUM that we had across all our schemes in the credit space.
Keeping in mind...
just to add, we're building our assets very slowly. As you know, whilst we have opened up our credit risk fund, we have limited the per investment, per investor a day, 1 crore.
Per day, yeah.
We are building up our assets slowly. As a result, we're under no pressure to deploy the assets and to chase assets which we may think are marginal, either in terms of rate or in terms of credit.
So keeping in third wave in the mind, which are the sectors you are going to underwrite in the credit space?
So, we are happy and we continue to look at cash flow throwing sectors. A lot of sectors, of course, the entire economy has been through a black swan. If there is any kind of a black swan, this was it. So, the companies that continue to throw good regular cash flows, those are the ones we'll look at. Cyclical companies with the upturn in commodity prices, as well as the tailwind in the economy, we could start seeing again coming into our portfolios. There will be some sectors we stay away from. These are the ones which are most impacted by COVID and could potentially get more impacted by COVID. The services sector where there's a lot of contact involved, be it airports, etc. These are the sectors that are badly impacted. So we'll be a little, we'll look and see how the recovery happens. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the smaller entities, which lend to the people who have been badly scarred by wave 2, the personal balance sheets, the small MSMEs, unsecured lending, those are the ones where we'll be a little wary of. So the small, really small FinCos, the small MFIs, places where we actually had taken large exposure about 3-4 years ago and fared very well with those exposures. We were very happy with those exposures, which we brought down to zero early last year. We'll continue to be maybe a little cautious when we are building up those sectors.
Just to ask, Sunaina, at this point of time, we have seen many fancy for the small financing companies, new ones, right? I will not name them now, but many of in the AMCs, otherwise also we are seeing in the secondary market, vehicle financing company and the commercial lending companies. They are seeing a lot of inroads in mutual fund industries also. So what's your view, and are you comfortable there?
So, when we're looking at newer companies particularly, very heavy emphasis we place on the group. And, that's also one of our learnings that, the group is as strong as the weakest company in the entire group, because it's that weak chain that can pull everything down, and like a domino effect. So if it's a relatively newer company, we look at the group very closely, see how strong the group is, look at to what extent the group is willing to capitalize this entity. Because financing, in the financing business, you need deep pockets and you need to have that margin of safety, particularly when you're starting up or you're relatively new. So, parentage is important. capitalization is important, business model is very important, and how they've actually gone about building their business over a period of time. Even companies that have been around for say 5-7 years, relatively new, have seen a lot of cycles in this last 5-7 years. So the way the management has responded, the way the portfolio has behaved is something that, we track very closely, and something that, once we're happy with or get comfort from, that they are able to manage, business cycles, economic cycles, liquidity cycles, and, pass through some of the toughest times in potentially the financing the business, and still come through relatively unscathed, then those are the businesses that we will look at, despite them being, relatively newer.
I think last question, I think liquidity is abundant and chasing good quality companies. And do you see an opportunity in this scenario?
Yeah, so liquidity is very abundant, but because of the experience that was there, we've seen that liquidity chase primarily AAA assets and very selective AA pluses. So what generally tends to happen when there is a kind of a crisis, and there was nothing less than a crisis in the tumultuous years that we saw in the credit market, is that, everybody swings, the pendulum swings to the other extreme. So, what excesses were there have been completely gone to the other extreme. Investor becomes wary, distributor becomes wary, mutual funds become wary, regulator becomes wary. And as a result, a lot of learning happens from the mistakes, and a lot of walls are built. In our case, binding constraints have been built. Regulator has put in a lot of regulations to protect the market and to protect investors. So to some extent, it has, it goes to the other extreme, so that the market then is, gets prepared and ready so that they are able to withstand any further similar kind of an event. Not to say that the market will not face events. Of course, it will face events. But a similar kind of event, the market has protected itself and tried to build up walls to prevent. There will be other kind of crises that come, but a similar crisis. So just to give you an example, the mutual fund industry, if I look at the industry as a whole, in 2017, well before any of IL&FS happened, about 25% of portfolio was invested in the entire mutual fund, all debt funds put together, in non-AAA, non-A1 plus assets. 25%, that's a very high percentage. That number came down as low as 5% last year, let's say in April, May 2020. Now there's a very high cost for that reduction. That 20% reduction and movement to AAA results in a 1 to 2% at least, loss in yield for investors. It's very expensive. And as a result, you have seen, mutual funds coming back to the credit markets also with increased confidence in the corporate health and with results being seen. And now that number is closer to 9-10%. This is, of course, for the mutual fund industry as a whole. Will we get back to those days of 25%? I don't know. It will probably take us a very, very long period of time if we ever get back there. I'm not sure we get back there. We probably won't. But there is, as a result, some amount of loss that is there for the investor, because you are losing that 2%, at least 2%, let's say on average, on that, because you have moved out of those higher yielding assets, lower rated, of course, but higher yielding, into AAAs. But, there is a fair amount of supply of paper in the market, good quality paper coming into the market. Mutual funds have increased their exposure. As I said, over a period of 1 year, while it was brought down dramatically, 5 has become 10%. So, I think with increased confidence, with increased, the walls and new practices, new regulations coming in our case, our additional binding constraints, I think, there will be increased credit taken on in portfolios.
One more question, Sunaina. This is regarding to existing main portfolio. In case of upside happens, in case of markups happen in Jharkhand Road project or Tamil Nadu Power, what is the upside we can see in the fund, and how investors will benefit in case if markup happens?
Sure. So, we can share those numbers with them, at a later stage. But I think right now, as a percentage of our AUM, in credit risk fund, the non-investment grade is about 2% of AUM. It's much higher in medium-term plan. And that's the reason why we've also opened up credit risk fund at this point of time and not opened up medium-term plan.
Okay, I think with this, some of the takeaways, learning experiences from the past, we have introduced stricter binding constraints, both in terms of rating profile and security level capping. This will help us make our portfolios robust in terms of managing credit risk and providing for liquidity across credit cycles, especially. Besides a structural opportunity, even cyclically, we have positive outlook for credit market, and we do recommend credit risk fund to our investors with a horizon of more than 3 years. And now we have open subscription for more than 1 crore per investor per day. So look forward to see more contribution in this space going forward. And thank you, Sunaina and Anurag, for taking your time and joining for today's session. And it's really very insightful. And thank you to all our MFD partners and as well as our investors who joined us today. Thank you so much for sparing your time. Look forward to having you in this platform on regular basis. Till that time, stay safe, take good care of yourself, and have a great evening ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.